Here on our perch looking down at the running backs who continue working their way through the drills. That is the third group that is performing today. Groups 1 and 2, the specialists got us started, and then all those offensive linemen. So, Bucky, Lance, why don't we begin with those offensive linemen and maybe a player that impressed you the most out there?
How about Gary Bowles from the University of Utah? This is a guy that came in, and we expected him to be one of the explosive athletes at the position. He certainly lived up to it. Loved his movement skills and drills. Liked the way that he is able to really show the balance, the body control, all the things that you look for at a position. 4.95 40. Here you're going to see the control to be able to change and turn and misdirect and do all those things that you like to see from your edge blockers. When you start to marry up his workout with his tape, I believe you begin to have the conversation that he could be a top 20 pick. And so coming out of the combine, he has to be one of the winners, one of the guys that you feel really good about.
And when you speak of wired differently, presented by Fios by Verizon, you also talk about how his brain is wired differently, and he does have that salt and that nasty when he's on the playing field.
Absolutely.
Now, the questions are, because of a checkered past, has he been able to move on from that? And that's something that those teams will figure out in the interview portion of the combine. You don't get to see it here on your TVs, but you hear an awful lot about it from the folks that do sit down with him.
Edge is okay. You know, playing
Certainly.
with edge, there's a big difference between playing
edge, nasty.
Yeah.
Well, you want it.
So, some of those things are acceptable. You can deal with a little feistiness, as we call it.
How about it, Lance? How about an offensive lineman?
I'm going to go Forrest Lamp. And Forrest Lamp, I thought, really had an impressive day today. Now, I have to admit, it was about what I expected, but it's nice to see him come out here and do it. His 5 flat 40 was the 4th best time out here in the combine. He had reps of 34, which was tied for 2nd. And then he had the explosion drill where he was the third best explosion drill with the broad jump as well. So he showed explosion, he shows power, and he shows foot quickness. Those are the elements you want to see from a guard and a center. And I tell you something that really is impressive to me. He's got a core. He's got a base of strength. So if you bump him inside, you know he can withstand and handle the bigger, stronger guys. So I think he's wired differently. He's a guy who played tackle, who can bump inside the guard or even center, and I think it's going to be relatively seamless for him.
That was groups 1 and 2. We had a third group, and as I said, they're still going at it down there in the drills portion behind us. So how about a running back, Bucky, wired differently?
Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara is a guy that is wired differently. He's a guy that's had a lot of attention in this circle. Running back coaches have fallen in love with him after talking to him in meetings. Very impressive in terms of his football IQ, his personality, and his overall understanding of the game. Today he came out and took care of business. 39.5-inch vertical, 4.5, 2, 4.5, 3.40. Shows that he's fast enough to play the position. Then when you look at the workouts, the movement skills, catching the ball out the backfield, being able to do all the things that have made him a triple threat at Tennessee, you continue to be able to check the boxes about him, which is why I believe he's going to be in the conversation as one of the top 3 or 4 backs in that position.
Is that first-round territory?
Well, I think he's absolutely in first-round conversation.
How about it, Lance?
I'm going to go Christian McCaffrey, and I'll be the first to admit I like Christian McCaffrey. I didn't love him when I watched him on tape, but, boy, he's really impressed me out here, and he is wired differently because he has the ability. All right, first of all, I thought he was going to run about a 4.53. He comes out and runs a 4.48, faster than I expected. In these position drills, I expected him to be good. I thought he was terrific in these position drills. And what it shows, look, this isn't underwear Olympics. This is functional quickness and movement. And it's a fluidity of like, there is no change in speed in his change. Like, there is no gear down to change direction. None. Everything stays at about the same speed all the times. And I think that's why he's wired differently. A lot of running backs have to gear down to break it. And I watched a running back for about 4 years by the name of Arian Foster, who never had to gear down to change directions. Now, Arian was a much bigger back, and that's why he was kind of a special back in that regard. But McCaffrey's the same way. Never gears down to change direction. He's the same speed all the time, and that's wired differently.
Yeah, I think that sometimes that shows up because people are like, I don't know how explosive he is, but he plays at a pace that allows him to make those sudden cuts. And when you talk about a triple threat, the way he can make contributions as a runner, receiver, and also in the return game, a lot of value in that. In the right system, he's going to be a very valuable and dynamic playmaker.
All right. That was Wired Differently, presented by Fios.